Good evening and welcome to the 5th annual Geekcentric Academy Awards preview show, presented by Geekcentric, a podcast celebrating the world of movies, television, gaming, toys and collectibles, and all things Geekcentric. Tonight, we will be examining some of the biggest and most prestigious categories from the 96th Academy Awards, giving our thoughts and predictions regarding some of our favorite nominees. And now, on with the show. What's up, geeks? It might seem crazy, but it's already that time of the year again, where we take a look at all things Oscar-centric like only Geekcentric can. I'm your host for this evening, and my name is Kevin. That's right, Kevin, which means according to one of the Oscar-nominated songs of the year, anywhere else I'd be a 7. A 7, which is okay, I guess, but nowhere near as awesome as my co-hosts for this evening. And they're making their way down the red carpet right now. First, we have Nate. Anywhere else, he'd be an 8, and that's just because of his dope-ass beard and hair. Throw in his bubbly personality and beautiful singing voice, and 8 is just being modest. We also have Justin, and his name says it all. He's just 10. There is no refuting it. How are we this evening, guys?
Doing well.
Doing well. Kevin, what are you wearing? It's beautiful. Who are you wearing?
This is a nice little hoodie by Geekcentric.
Oh, wow.
Available soon on the Geekcentric shop.
You'd think we'd be selling them by now. We rock them so much. But.
You know what? I have had more than one person say, hey, when can I get some merch? So
let's make it happen.
Maybe this is the year we look into it, boys. We say it every year, but I think, I think we're there.
Yeah. Let's see how many awards we win, and then we'll go from there.
Well, there we go. Well, the movie event of the year was obviously Barbenheimer, but this year's Academy Awards might as well just be called Oscarsheimer, as the film looks to dominate the show. There were 10 Best Pictures nominated for Best Picture. One was Oppenheimer. The other 9 are all poor things.
Oh, no.
2 Avengers are nominated for the Best Supporting Actor Award, which means we'll finally get the answer to who would win in a fight between Iron Man and the Hulk when Robert Downey Jr. inevitably takes home the gold. Speaking of, when that envelope is opened, I just hope it says Robert, so they can pan to Robert De Niro and he can go, "Are you talking to me?" Many people had issues with the lack of subtitles for the Osage dialogue in Killers of the Flower Moon, but they were left out intentionally because those scenes are actually just the actors saying to each other, "Can you believe this thing is going to be 3.5 hours long?" And speaking of 3.5 hours, Killers of the Flower Moon is nominated for Best Editing. Did the Academy momentarily forget the meaning of the word editing? But in all honesty, this year's list of nominees features such incredible films, performances, and behind-the-scenes magic that it's hard to do anything but praise the amazing efforts by some very talented people. As such, I thought it'd be fun to share some interesting statistics about some of the nominees this year. A big thanks to LA Times for providing some of these amazing facts. As always, there were lots of firsts this year. Lily Gladstone, far and away the standout from Killers of the Flower Moon, is the first Native American to be nominated for lead actress. Nominations for Coleman Domingo of Rustin and Jodie Foster of Naiad marks the first time in the same year that 2 LGBTQ actors have been nominated for playing LGBTQ characters. In fact, Bonnie Stahl is Jodie's first lesbian acting role, and Coleman is the first Afro-Latino to earn a lead actor nomination. This is the first time that 2 people in the same year, actor-producers Bradley Cooper and Emma Stone, have earned nominations of both Best Picture and Lead Acting Awards. This is the first time that 2 foreign language films, Anatomy of a Fall and Zone of Interest, have been nominated for Best Picture in the same year. And a second international first, every documentary feature nominee is a non-English speaking film. No American movie made the top 5. It's the first time 3 female directors have earned Best Picture nominations for their work in the same year. A huge congratulations to Justine Triet, Celine Song, and Greta Gerwig. Speaking of Gerwig, she's the only director ever to see their first 3 feature film outings, Lady Bird, Little Women, and Barbie, be nominated for Best Picture, which is absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. Speaking of amazing, we saw some incredible visual effects in movies this year, and that category was dominated by one man. Neil Corbould received a trio of nods for his work on Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, Napoleon, and The Creator. That's a first for this category. You could almost say it would be an even bigger upset for him to lose than it will be for Bradley Cooper after spending 6 years preparing for Maestro. But finally, there are some pretty amazing stats that are the complete opposite of first-time accomplishments. John Williams has now been nominated a total of 54 times between Best Original Score and Song categories. Robert De Niro edges out his co-star Leonardo DiCaprio for most credited roles in a Best Picture nominee, with 12 over Leo's 11. Steven Spielberg has earned his 13th Best Picture nomination for Maestro, a record for an individual producer. And finally, Thelma Schoonmaker has her record 9th nomination for film editing with Killers of the Flower Moon. It was truly a remarkable year in filmmaking, and we are here to celebrate and discuss that, while also having a bit of friendly competition amongst ourselves. Every year, we choose about 13 of our favorite categories to discuss and predict the winners of, and this year will be no different. I was able to win last year, guessing 12 of 13 correctly. This year seems like a lock for many of the awards we're about to discuss, but there's always a surprise win somewhere, and that might just be the difference maker this year. We'll have to see. So without further ado, let the show begin. Are we ready to discuss Oscars, boys?
Kevin, I think you're giving Kimmel a run for his money here on the hosting gig. I mean, they might need to be looking at you for 97. You know what I'm saying?
You know what? I was gonna try and make jokes, and looking at the subject matter of a lot of these films, it was just like, that doesn't feel appropriate. We've made enough fun of the Golden Globes and the debacle that went on there earlier this year.
True.
And I thought, you know what? Let's stick to praise. And if Jimmy Kimmel goes up there and reads stats, I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. But we'll see what he does.
Kevin, I think a little bit of joking around is always nice to start off the show. So thank you.
Hey, I do what I can here. But why don't we get into our first award, which is for Best Actress in a Supporting Role. Our nominees are Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Nyad, and Davine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers.
I feel like this is definitely one of those categories that feels very locked in, given the praise that Davine Joy has received for The Holdovers across all the awards. And yeah, I think that this is definitely going to go to her. Her character was just flawless. It felt natural. It felt sincere. And I think also there's a lot of relatability that exists in that movie, and a lot of it comes from her character as well.
I think this category, to me, I think you're right. It is a bit of a lock, but that's not to say that it's not stacked. I mean, I think Emily Blunt was phenomenal in Oppenheimer. I think I do think America Ferrera, I don't think she would necessarily win for her overall performance in that role, but that speech alone is why she is here and nominated from that movie. But yeah,
certainly one of the most important pieces of dialogue of the year.
Absolutely,
for sure.
And she delivered that so incredibly. But no, Davine Joy Randolph is you're right. She's perfect. She's a powerhouse in that movie, and I felt like I knew so much about her character and what she was going through by the end of that film. I think she's an unforgettable aspect of that film. She adds so much, and I think we haven't really seen her, for me at least, too much other than Only Murders in the Building, where she's phenomenal as Detective Donna Williams. But I'm gonna say it's Davine as well, and I'm just really excited to see what she continues to do.
I'm glad you mentioned Only Murders, because I think we're obviously familiar with her work, being huge fans of the show, but I think she might be a relative unknown, especially compared to some of the other names in this category. And so it's always these kind of awards, the supporting actor and actress, it either goes to a really established actor finally getting their due, Robin Williams, Morgan Freeman in the best supporting actor category, but it can also be sort of that huge introduction to audiences, and she certainly made a memorable splash with that role. And yeah, I think this one is an absolute lock. We're all going for Davine Joy Randolph. Let's now move on and take a look at our first of 10 Best Picture nominees. From producers Ben Leclerc, Nikos Karamegios, Cord Jefferson, and Jermaine Johnson, American Fiction follows a frustrated novelist professor who writes an outlandish satire of stereotypical black books, only for it to be mistaken by the liberal elite for serious literature and published to both high sales and critical praise.
Yeah, I think Jeffrey Wright is such a fantastic actor, and I like that I get to see him in this movie different than I've seen in a lot of the portrayals that I've come accustomed to knowing him from, whether it be Westworld or the Batman or the French Dispatch. Like, he's just able to be so many different characters, and I think what I loved about this movie the most is the way that it's able to distill so many words into moments that last just seconds of silence between the elements of dialogue. I think it's just done so well, and it also shows a writer's experience writing that I've never seen before shown on screen. I'm sure it's been done, but the way they did it, where we kind of get this moment where we see what he's writing played out in front of his head, or in front of him in his head, is so well done. And I love that this story is kind of in itself here to say that, movies centered on Black people or from Black people can be so much more than, their history or what people in Hollywood or what white people want to see. And I think even broader, it paints a really clear message that I think rings very true for a lot of folks in a lot of different cultures and groups out there. But at the same time, it does all that, and it's still freaking hilarious. There's heartfelt moments. There's some really strong characters by the end. And Justin, I remember you and I were talking about this movie, and I kind of said that I felt like I had experienced a season of TV with these characters, especially Myra Lucretia Taylor, who I think, Justin, you and I both said, like, if something happens to Lorraine in this movie, we're gonna turn it off. She was too lovely, but I had to jump in here because this was definitely one of my favorites of the best pictures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, the performances, it goes without saying, the entire cast delivers. But I think for me, I really enjoyed the commentary about Black representation and Black stories, how they're told, they're commercialized and depicted for white people in a way that gives white society disillusioned perspectives on what it means to be Black living in America, and that literally being the American fiction of the story. And the film itself is obviously taking a very white approach. Right, like I read online, someone said that the whole story revolving around Monk and his family and all of this is usually told from the perspective of a white person, but here we have it from the perspective of a Black person, which really highlights that Black people live the same lives. People in different cultures and minorities live the same lives. It's just more indicative of their culture because it's so much more. And I think, again, like the ending was really, really great for this movie. It really does subvert the expectation of for any audience that would want to have heard a confession or hear some sort of resolve, and instead it plays to the candor of it being a movie. It still needs to be commercially successful. It still needs to have a point to it, and I love that commentary about films and stories and that resolution, and that sometimes ambiguity isn't something that a lot of people can deal with in narratives, and it kind of does that. I think the only thing that really stood out is how it goes and weaves through both the cynical, satirical, and sincere moments. It feels sort of like almost so tonally shifted. It feels like two different movies smashed together. I don't know if that's necessarily by design, but for me, it just really highlighted specific moments that were very cynical or very satirical, and then moments that were very sincere. And there was just a sort of a mix of that throughout the movie. Again, nothing that would be overly didn't like the movie based on it, but I think that was just one thing that I really noticed. It didn't know what it really wanted to be, but it had its message down. It had its performances down. It had its overall opinion locked in about what it was trying to say.
Absolutely. And I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head there, where it really does go to show that, I mean, the whole point is that, while different races and different cultures do have very specific circumstances and experiences that relate directly to them, we are all just humans dealing with those same problems, the loss of family, financial burdens, that sort of thing. It's all just the human experience. And so I think they do it really well. When I was sort of picking the order for watching the 10 best picture nominees, I saved this one for last because I just had a feeling. And every year it's like there's one movie where it's like, okay, we're going to write this movie because this is exactly the kind of dialogue that Kevin likes. There's a movie that just feels like it was written for me, and this is that one. I generally my favorite pictures are generally ones nominated in either adapted or original screenplay, and that's no different here. I absolutely loved this film, and yeah, I love Jeffrey Wright coming on and saying the first word of the movie, and it's almost like you're ready for him to say time, space,
Yes.
But then he that timbre in his voice is just unbelievable. But he's honestly quickly becoming one of my favorite working actors.
Yeah.
I will actively seek out his performances and stuff. And this is the official winning me over of Sterling K. Brown. I've never been a huge fan, but between watching Miss Maisel earlier this year and then this movie, I'm like, Sterling. You're a tremendous actor, and dude, you're almost 50, and you're rocking that bod, bro. You are fit.
Unreal.
Like, that guy is a specimen.
gorgeous.
Holy
Yeah.
cow. Wow.
Okay, rip. No. I love that.
This was nominated for 4 awards, I believe. I'm not sure if we're going to see it win anything, which feels like a shame. But again, the competition is so stiff this year. It's going to be really tough for everyone to get what they want. But why don't we move into our next award category, which is for actor in a supporting role. Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. Just who do you think's taking this one?
Again, I think this is pretty definitive. I feel like, logically it's going to be Robert De Niro, but Robert Downey Jr.
I was gonna say, whoa.
Sorry.
It's like, whoa,
Yeah,
pulling out a surprise
Yeah.
guess off the
I read the
Did
wrong
you read
name.
the wrong
My
envelope?
apologies.
What
Yeah,
happened?
no, I
Oh
read
my
the wrong one.
gosh.
I just had a Warren
Warren,
Beatty
okay,
moment.
Warren,
Yeah.
settle down.
No, definitely Robert Downey Jr. He's obviously dominated in the awards category and has been taking this award home, and rightfully so. I think he was the perfect antithesis to that of Oppenheimer, played by Cillian Murphy. So I think that's really great. But that doesn't go without saying, like, this category is stacked. Like, Ryan Gosling as Barbie. I would really love it if that was the upset and Ryan Gosling won.
Like, I think Ryan should win maybe a different award for just most incredible facial expressions in a movie. I think you could. I've said it before, but I think you could mute his scenes in Barbie specifically and just watch them and still laugh just as hard. He is such a good, sort of comedic facial performance. And then I think.
Well, and imagine the speech. I just won, and then just. That is sublime, and walk off the stage. It's perfect.
I'm hoping he gets the sing this year. I would love to see a performance.
I don't want to spoil anything, but it's been confirmed.
Spoilers,
yes,
jeez.
which made my day.
Well, and then Jack Black needs to get up there with Peaches. But I think Sterling K. Brown was definitely a huge scene stealer in American Fiction. As you said, Kevin, it was the role that kind of made you love him. But yeah, Robert Downey Jr. He's got it. He, as you said, Justin, he's won everywhere else. He's like a lot of that movie. He is pitch perfect in it, and I'll be really happy for him when he wins.
Yeah, and just looking forward to another great speech. His speech at the Globes was phenomenal, and everything we'd expect from him. I think I mentioned it then. It's just incredible that a guy who went and made $100 million playing a character in a comic book movie is like, now I'm going to go and, show people how good of an actor I was in those movies by doing other movies, and I'm going to take home some serious hardware. Like, that's so cool. Mm-hmm. Career resurgence number 3 for the guy. Unbelievable.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's move to our second nominee for a Best Picture. From producers Maria Ange Luciana and David Theon, Anatomy of a Fall tells the story of a writer in an isolated mountain chalet near Grenoble trying to prove her innocence in her husband's death. I stayed away from finding out what like some of these movies were, watching trailers, that sort of thing, and so I had no idea that I was getting into this riveting, incredible courtroom drama, which is one of my favorite subgenres, and so that was such a pleasant surprise, and it was just gripping and harrowing right to the very end. You have no idea how this is going to go, what the outcome's going to be, what actually happened. And so I was really pleasantly surprised by this. even despite the serious and dark nature of the story being told. I thought this was really, really well done, and just an absolutely tremendous performance from Sandra Hüller as well. She really, really does carry this movie with her anguish and everything she's going through, and you can't even imagine having to be on trial for the murder of your husband when you're claiming you're innocent. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same page. Like the interesting courtroom procedural story is definitely of an intrigue for me. I love those. Like go back to films like JFK and or even what's the one with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson?
A Few Good Men.
Yes, A Few Good Men. Another real great aspect to telling like a courtroom style drama. This is definitely taking it in a different direction, and it's elevated by outstanding performances, like you said. Like Sandra Hüller is fantastic, and I love the ambiguity around the death and its lack of resolve in the end, and it really serves to subvert those expectations while also leaving the audience to formulate their own opinion based on what they know and what they've seen. Even though things feel very omitted at times, it's based on really reading the person and understanding if they're lying or not. And that's really what it comes down to at the end of this movie is, do you believe her? Do you think she actually got away, even though she might have been acquitted of these charges? Did she actually commit the act? And I think that anytime a film can leave an audience member, or leave me at least, feeling like I'm kind of asking questions, that's a success. That's a good movie, because it doesn't necessarily want to just wrap it all up for you. It kind of leans into it. It's a bit long though, I will say, but it helps to build who her character is going into the courtroom style stuff, to help kind of define and again have you as an audience member questioning, is she telling the truth? What is she lying? What is she hiding? So there's a lot of that kind of goes through there. So
yeah, I think while I'd agree, normally I would say 2.5 hours for this movie might be a little long, but when you've got 3.5 hours of Killer of the Flower Moon, everything else seems like a cakewalk. And there was no clock watching for any of the other movies for me. So, but maybe if I didn't have the precedent of the other one, it might have felt a bit long. But like you said, it really does. It's almost necessary for the way they establish so many counterpoints to her character, and they keep planting these seeds of her potential guilt the whole way through. There's never a time where you're ever quite certain of what happens, and I think that was really, really well done.
And I do want to shout out. For me, I can't say I was as hot on this movie as you two were, but I will say Milo, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name, Machado Grainer, was fantastic in this movie. I think he did a really, really good job in his role, and I think the biggest thing for me, because like you said, Justin, by the end of it, you're kind of like, do you know if she did it or not? And for a lot of me, I was struggling to kind of connect with her as a protagonist in terms of like, I like her or do I not like her? Is she guilty? Is she not guilty? But I think his performance, and there's a very specific moment where there's he basically tells her to go, that really hit for me, and I thought that was kind of the turning point for me, where I started to really recognize and see the performances from both Sandra and Milo. I thought it was really, really stellar, and that's definitely what lasted with me from that movie.
And I mean, anybody who's been married can relate to, the thought of pushing your spouse off a balcony. So no, I kid. I love
Yikes.
my wife.
It's recorded. We got it on the recording.
Oh no!
Yeah.
See, right?
And now I have to learn French,
so now
Kevin.
I can't
Thanks.
do it. Well, it's funny because I am doing Duolingo right now, so I was trying to not watch the subtitles, and I'd be like, "Nope, just missed that whole sentence." Great. Okay, well, I wonder what they said there. So that was almost a backfire there. All right, let's move to a category near and dear to our hearts. Being the pop culture geeks that we are, we do love this category, and it is one of the newest categories that the Academy does, and I think it's very important. We're going to move to visual effects. The nominees are I would do all the names, but there's about 5 or 6 people in each category. We respect and love your work, and you're going to get your name read on the real broadcast. We're not important enough to worry about that. So let's go with the nominees first. The Creator, Godzilla -1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon.
Yeah, this category is tricky. I personally like. I would love the team that worked on Guardians 3 to get it for the incredible work on animals in that movie. It just look absolutely insane. And, you know, you see James Gunn posting to his Instagram shortly after the movie came out, all the sort of just like the test footage and just different things like that. And even in like test footage, it just looks outstanding. Another part of me would love for a kaiju film to take home the gold. But I think for me, I'm going to go with heart over maybe over head, given what I think a few people are going to go with. But for me, and the visuals, I'm going with the creator. I think they're the visuals are like just so otherworldly, so awe-inspiring, and on a budget of $80 million, it just kind of blows me away that they were able to give so much life to these characters, and that so many of them didn't even have human mouths. Like, you know, you think of androids normally and it's like, yeah, you're going to get a good performance because it's a human face, but a lot of them weren't, and yet I still was able to connect with them and feel for them, and it's just the way that they moved, and ultimately the way they performed was outstanding. And I know there were a lot of bodies, like actual humans, involved in that as well. But the fact that they were able to make that look so seamless blew me away. So I'm going to go with the creator.
Yeah, I'm with you, Nate. I'm going with the creator as well.
Sweet.
Godzilla -1 is the closest that I would think. I want both of either one of those films to win because, like you pointed out, they're very thin tightrope budget that they had to do the visual effects that they were able to do. That says a lot about filmmaking, because when you look at the other options like Guardians of the Galaxy, Mission Impossible, and Napoleon, 200 million plus budgets, right?
For sure.
And
that's fair.
And I think that if you can achieve the level of world building that the creator has done, the level of immersion that something like Godzilla -1 has done, and I haven't seen it, I've only heard outstanding things about just
the trailers,
the immersiveness of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going with the creator because, again, I think they did a really big push for the FYC portion for your consideration, and they were really focusing on the visual effects. There was a couple little screenings and Q&As that were hosted across the states that very much talked about what went into bringing this world to life. And yeah, I think it deserves the flowers for doing it on an $80 million budget with cameras that, you know, are deemed as pro level cameras. They're not cinema grade cameras. And I know a lot of people say it doesn't really matter what you're shooting on, but, you know, again, looking at the other films like Guardians, Napoleon, and Mission Impossible, you know they're using massive camera rigs designed for specific visual effects, whereas the creator sort of shot and then built in effects after, which I think is just, it's incredible. So my vote is for the creator as well.
I'm going to stray just a little from you guys here, but I am going to go with Godzilla just because of, from what I've heard about the way people are revering the movie and how they're applauding it. And, you know, I think this category was created to sort of almost reward the big blockbuster movies for something. So something like Mission Impossible or a big, you know, scaled up, historical epic like Napoleon. But no, I think what they managed to do in Godzilla, again on the budget, and just the way they use the CGI to tell the story, I think that's why this is in this category, and I think that might give it the slight edge. But I honestly think it's like 50-50 between these two movies now, and it's going to be very interesting to see who wins, but I think both are very deserving choices.
Yeah, and I think in the end, too, they could potentially just throw it to, like, a Mission Impossible, because I'm imagining part of the visual effects would have to play into the fact that some of that stunt work was done by, like, actual teams and stuff. I don't know if that's part of the reason why it's received this award in other award categories, or other awards that have been hosted. But I feel like, yeah, I think the creator is gonna take it, or that, or I would be happy if that or Godzilla.
Yeah, I think it's one of those two. I can't see Mission Impossible taking it, just because, that's one of the movies that people in the industry are literally saying we need to get another award specifically for stunt work and that sort of thing.
Please.
And I think that's what Tom Cruise would want this movie to be celebrated for, I think, even more than the CGI, right? Obviously, they help make him look as good as he does, but he's like, man, I jumped off a freaking mountain. I want that celebrated more than anything else. Tom just really wants an Academy Award. But
He hasn't won.
All right, let's move on to our.
Yes.
No, he's never won.
Okay.
He's never won. He should have won for
Magnolia?
Was it Magnolia? Yeah, he should have won for Magnolia years ago. But I honestly hope once he's done being a crazy old man daredevil and settles into some real film, I believe he signed up for a pretty prestigious with a pretty well-known director recently for something that seems like that. Get back into some cinema, Tom. Win yourself that Oscar before it's too late. Although he's going to go till he's 140, so he's got lots of time left.
He's going to be in space.
Scientology, man.
Exactly.
Scientology. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. When you're on top and getting all the money, it's probably a good place to be.
Project Necromancer.
Okay, let's move to our next. Jeez Louise. All right, I'm doing it. I don't care what anybody says. I'm moving to our next nominee for Best Picture. From producers David Heyman, Margot Robbie, Tom Ackerley, and Robbie Brenner, Barbie follows toys come to life, Barbie and Ken, on a journey of self-discovery through both Barbieland and the real world following an existential crisis. The $1.4 billion Barbie. Wow. Just this movie has been talked about nonstop for about 8 months now, and certainly deserves to be here.
Yeah, I think out of all the movies up for Best Picture, I don't think one of them kept me smiling and laughing as consistently as Barbie. I think obviously it's got a fantastic message that everyone should hear. We talked about that from with America Ferrera's speech, and I just had such a fantastic time hearing that message and watching this movie, and I think it just comes together as just this incredible celebration of women. And I left the theater with my cheeks hurting multiple times, the ones on my face, just to be clear. But I also love when movies can start different movements for audiences, and to see all the pink in the theater was such a fun time to see the pink cowboy hats, and just for me, I don't think this movie's not going to win Best Picture, but it will always be. And it will always be Knuff, is what I was going to say. But
okay. Sure.
But yeah,
Sure.
I get that.
That makes sense, yeah. Yeah, I honestly believe that this movie, like you're saying, Nate, deserves to be nominated for Best Picture. I know a lot of people were a little miffed or upset that Greta didn't get director, or the fact that Margot didn't get nominated for lead actress. But in all honesty, them being nominated for Best Picture and being in that category, that puts Greta and Margot in the place where they deserve the award most. The effort, or the fight, if you will, to get this movie made, a movie that challenges the notion, all notions of IP-based films, to give you something entirely different that no one expected, and the conversations that happened after, and the weeks that it was in theaters, and all the people getting dressed, like you said, Nate, wearing pink, that is Best Picture material when you think about it. Movies that stick with people for a really long time. So it makes sense, and it also makes sense, like you were saying, to have America Ferrera nominated as Best Supporting Actress, and having Ryan Gosling nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Their performances, like Ryan Gosling was obviously more of a character, but I really feel like America Ferrera really is that relatable woman, right? And her speech is so powerful, and when you have someone like Ryan Gosling playing Ken, it's so stereotypical, but he didn't hide from it. He owned it. He leaned into it in a lot of ways. So I think where this movie has been nominated for Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress and Actor, and Best Adapted, I think it all makes sense for where this movie deserves to be celebrated as one of the year's best.
I love that point, Justin, that being the producers that made this movie come to life, and for it to be what it was, instead of just, it could have been a Transformers style movie. Let's take some toys and make a bunch of money, marketing that. No, this was a real story told through that lens, and that's where Margot and Greta really did make the magic happen most. That's amazing. And then you say celebrating America and Ryan. I'm going to love the dichotomy of the clips they show when they're reading out the nominees. America's will definitely be from that incredible speech.
Yeah.
And then who knows what it'll be for Gosling, but it's going to be a completely different
I
style
hope it's him
of-
with the
of
guitar. I
celebration
hope it's just
clip, and I
him with
love
the
that.
guitar singing.
On the
Yeah.
beach. Oh, I mean, he deserves an award just for his amazing Rob Thomas impression.
For sure.
It's spot
Yeah,
on.
so good.
Yeah, and I think I gushed over this movie with Meg more than enough in our year-end review chat. If you want to hear what I really think of this movie and how much I love it, go check that episode out. But yeah, I think it's safe to say, while we don't think it's going to win Best Picture, probably it was one of the best and certainly most fun Best Pictures of the year. But, I think the winner of that category is going to come down to a lot more of the technical behind the camera work that goes on. And we're going to look at a little bit more of that in our next two categories. So we'll move on to our next award, which is for Best Achievement in Cinematography. For El Conde, Edward Lachman. For Killers of the Flower Moon, Rodrigo Prieto. For Maestro, Matthew Libatique. For Oppenheimer, Hoyt van Hoytema. And for Poor Things, Florian Hofmeister.
Yeah, I'm. This has to go to Hoyt. He deserves it. The visuals that he was able to capture through the IMAX camera, he continues to amaze me. Like the fact that last year he wasn't nominated for Nope is just a travesty. It's like, how does that guy not get nominated for that movie in an otherwise very boring category last year? But again, I think the cinematography though in some of these films is something that's absolutely beautiful. Like Robbie Ryan, Poor Things, I thought was really, really great. The use of fisheye lenses and super wide angle lenses, and the way the camera was situated in specific moments, and the lighting, it created a mood, it created a vibe of its own. And Maestro, like I actually really enjoyed the cinematography. I thought the use of the camera and the way it sort of sat still in moments was absolutely beautiful, and just allowing moments to sort of very naturally sort of unfold, and that the way the camera's sort of an observant of that, a voyeur, it was actually well done, and the lighting was just the mood, the vibe of it, the tone, the color palette was just so nice. But yeah, Hoyt van Hoytman, Oppenheimer, this is like one of the many technical awards that Oppenheimer's going to take home, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm going with Hoyt.
Yeah, I think Robbie Ryan, like you said, Justin, I think there are some outlandish aspects about that movie, but absolutely so too is the cinematography in that film. I think is cuckoo bananas at time, but it fits so well. I think it adds so much to the aesthetic and feel of that story. But Hoyt van Hoytema, he seemingly figures out how to do the impossible in Oppenheimer, which is so cool. It's magic. It's one of those things that, again, you watch the movie and you sort of just forget that you're watching a movie. And that, I think anytime that can happen from obviously from a storytelling perspective, but from a cinematography perspective is incredible. And he was just able to achieve that. And I think it's his best work to date. So yeah, I'm going to vote Hoyt van Hoytema.
100%, especially when you consider, I can't remember specific specs, and it's all sort of technical jargon when I'm reading it, but from the sounds of it, it's all quite impressive in terms of the type of film used and basically created for this specific film. From what I understand, he almost advanced camera technology to new levels for the kind of requirements for the shots in this movie, and I think that deserves recognition alone. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go with Hoyt van Hoytema here, and hopefully this is my only mistake in the nominees, but I gave credit to Florian Hofmeister for Poor Things, but it is Robbie Ryan. That is my mistake there. Again, hopefully it doesn't happen again, especially when you consider just how tremendous the work there was, like you mentioned with the fisheyes and everything, just giving us these different perspectives, almost like a fly on the wall watching these bizarre things happen. Mm-hmm. It was a really fun, playful way to tell that story.
Yeah, it was very otherworldly at times, right? Just so it could be intimate, but then it could also be like just wide in scope and scale, and yeah, it was so immersive.
but I think that film will be recognized for production design.
Potentially, yeah.
You know, while that cinematography really brings that to life, I think the production, the design itself, is where the awards in that regard are going to come for Poor Things. So it certainly won't get shut out from a technical standpoint. I don't think.
No.
We'll have to see on Sunday, but well, let's move on to our next sort of technical category here, and that is for best achievement in film editing. For Anatomy of a Fall, Laurent Senechal. For The Holdovers, Kevin Tent. For Killers of the Flower Moon, Thelma Schoonmaker. For Oppenheimer, Jennifer Lame. I really hope I didn't mispronounce that, but there's no accent aigu over the E, so I'm just going to say Lame. And for Poor Things, Yorgos Mavropsaridis.
I'm going with Oppenheimer. I think the way that film was able to still down into a 3-hour movie and make it really concise, really tight, show you all the necessary elements that you need, almost building it in a part 1 and a part 2 put together as one movie. I think it's a craft in itself, with so much material that feels so you need to convey a lot. It's really dense at times. I feel like the editing really sings in that film, and it really showcases the ability, and also just this idea of displacement of time. Again, we know Nolan always likes to use that as an element, and just how we find out things and how we move through the story to handle all of that, to be able to weave us through. Personally, I think Oppenheimer deserves it in the ways that it tells its story. But again, the other option that I would probably put is like as an honorable mention is Poor Things, just for how at times it can be very jarring. And how it cuts itself and tells its story and makes you feel specific moments with its editing and with its intention with the edit.
Yeah, I think Poor Things is it's not often that I see a movie that has like interstitials with like almost like a kind of a scene in the background of them, where it would sort of show each, I guess, chapter of that movie. I thought that was really interesting, and sort of how they would, to your point, Justin, at times cut to certain moments to kind of emphasize some of the, whether it be the gratuitous, like sort of crazy sex in that movie, or the sort of brutal moments as well. And yeah, I definitely think that Yorgos did a great job on that. But I think Jennifer, has it. To your point again, a huge runtime, the amount of characters we need to know, the plot, the way it moves, the way as you said, it jumps back and forth. And I think just to be able to stitch it all together in a way that doesn't make me feel like I spent 3 hours sitting in front of a movie screen is incredibly impressive. So for pacing alone, Jennifer's got it.
Yeah, that's where I am as well. I mean, I know I'm not alone, and maybe I'm beating a dead horse here, but Killers of the Flower Moon felt like 3.5 hours. You would have a hard time convincing me, even if you had a clock over the screen, that this was a 3-hour long movie.
Yeah.
It just flew by, and it is that balancing of past and future going back and forth, woven together so perfectly and so well done. I think the editing is such an achievement for that movie, and really goes a long way to helping Nolan tell the story he wanted to tell there. So that's going to be my choice as well. Why don't we move on to our next nominee for Best Picture? From producers Mark Johnson, Bill Block, and David Hemmingson, The Holdovers is the story of a strict classics teacher at a New England boarding school who is forced to chaperone a handful of students with nowhere to go on Christmas break.
Yeah, dude, this movie, okay, so I got 8 minutes into this movie and I was like, I feel like I could have watched this in like high school in English class as part of like a class project. Like, it felt like I would, it has that classic sort of Dead Poets Society, Breakfast Club vibe, and it just the way that it's got that vintage film grain aesthetic just kind of takes you right away back to that moment. Watching this movie, I was like, I can smell the wooden desks and the musky school books of that time, and and then to just kind of give us these three brilliant performances of from Paul Giamatti. We already mentioned Divine Joy Randolph, and newcomer Dominic Sessa, who in this movie I was like blown away. I'm like, who is this kid? Where did he come from? And to see that this is kind of his first big thing is unreal. This movie is so lovely, and this is the one that I did choose to kind of leave till for as late as I could, like you, Kevin, and I think this is kind of the perfect early December movie. Like, it is kind of centered in and around Christmas, but I think early December, kind of, I don't think it falls in line with all the other like Christmas movies, but it definitely feels like an instant classic film,
like a holiday
yeah
movie.
And it just is like, I'm like, bro, like, this is from just the way that it's done, it's just so impressive, the way that it's kind of edited and shot and shown, that I'm just like, you could tell me this movie came out shortly after it was like when it's portrayed, and I would believe you. Like, if you told me this was an 80s movie, I would believe you, and I think that's fantastic.
You brought up such a great point there about how, like, you're reminded of like that high school feeling and watching this like classic old movie when you're watching this, and I was kind of almost surprised to find out that it was an original screenplay and not adapted from a novel, because it does feel like one of those like classic American novels brought to the screen, and I think that's such a testament to the writing in this movie. And this was kind of a great opposite bookend to American fiction for me when I started my big Best Picture watch. I started with this one, and it was such a pleasant, beautiful, wonderful way to start that journey outside of the two big blockbusters from last summer. And I honestly, I'm having such a hard time not giving Best Actor to Paul Giamatti for his performance here. I loved everything he does in this movie, the growth his character shows. I think it's just phenomenal. This was one of my favorite of the best pictures.
Curl your toes.
Yeah,
that's the best line. Sorry. Curl your toes. It's so good.
I think this is this is a movie driven by really great writing and really great performances. Alexander Payne delivers probably one of the most, like, I guess you could say, wholesome films within the Best Picture category, and it's led by Giamatti, who serves as like this Grinch or Scrooge-like character of the film, and slowly his heart grows and he becomes more open, and like it's really beautiful, right? Like this sort of subtle holiday vibe that it has, and we've already talked about it, like, but the performances from Giamatti, Divine, and Dominic, who plays Angus, like, it's perfection. It helps to drive this movie and really feel for these characters and understand their place. And everyone is just delivering such a sincere and honest performance. And I don't know, like, I got this message that the family you find can be the family you need at times, rather than the family that you are obviously a part of. Sometimes that found family is really the help and the voice that you need. And I thought that it's a really interesting sentiment to talk about the people around you and what value they can add to your life, and how they can improve you as a person. So yeah, it was a really great message in this one, and it's perfect. It's a perfect holiday movie in the sense of just that messaging alone, even though it's not like a Christmas story. Christmas exists in this at this time, and it helps to kind of give you that sort of wholesomeness, that connectivity and whatnot. So I think it was a good idea to infuse that into this story. So yeah, I really enjoyed this film.
Absolutely. I like that. Yeah, Justin. It was definitely perhaps the most wholesome of our Best Picture nominees. Let's move on to our next award, which is for Best Original Score. For American Fiction, Laura Cartman. For Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, John Williams. For Killers of the Flower Moon, Robbie Robertson. For Oppenheimer, Ludwig Göransson. And for Poor Things, Jerskin Fendrix.
What a name, Jerskin Fendrix. I want to shout out Laura Cartman. I mean, Justin, you got to talk to Laura I guess in just last year for the Marvels, and I think the score from Laura for American Fiction just fits that movie like a glove. I think it hits in every single moment, whether it's sadness or comedy or both at the same time, and I think that the jazz elements are just so great in that movie, and I really enjoyed what she did with that one.
Yeah, I loved her work on that film too. I think it gave it that Americana vibe that feels very poignant and also like the right vibe and tone for the film that we're getting, the sort of piano centric jazz style. At times, I know it sounds really weird, but it reminded me of like a Frasier or you know, like something that you would see in like in a sort of a comedy style score. But it was obviously like it was accentuated in a lot of ways. Like at times you'd hear a mixture of instruments, but then you just hear keys at specific moments, and that just helps to accentuate that moment. It was really like thoughtfully done in the score placement.
Well, and just a fun fact about American Fiction, Jeffrey Wright's character is named after famous jazz pianist Thelonious Monk, and yet they don't use any of his music in the movie intentionally. But I just thought that was quite interesting, given all the connections.
But it does seem like the kind of music that Monk probably would
and
pop
grew up
on,
to.
right, while he's
But
writing.
he also grew up
Absolutely.
in it because
Yeah.
it's probably music that his parents would have introduced him to. Right. So it could be this whole other sentiment of why jazz is so integral and important to the character.
But I'm gonna give my go here for Ludwig. It's gonna be Ludwig. The big sweeping theme alone for Oppenheimer, I think, just sort of helps to emphasize how big that movie is, and I think
we're going to hear it a lot on Sunday.
Oh, huge! It's over and over and over and over again. Yeah. The Academy Orchestra is going to do a wonderful job, but I think the ticking elements just work so well in that movie for the quiet moments. But then we also get those incredible crescendos that build and build and build, and just sort of highlight not only obviously the atomic bomb and the explosion, but also kind of the internal struggle that Oppenheimer goes through in that movie, and it's just so good. And I said in our initial review that I didn't think it was Ludwig's most memorable score. I do think he might have some other work that is very memorable, but after listening to the score more since that initial review, absolutely I was wrong. It is very memorable. It's something that I think is so integral to that movie that it's like I said this before on another review that we did, but it's like one without the other doesn't exist. Like you have the music, when you hear the music, you watch the movie, and vice versa. So
you just said that about Dune 2. Actually.
Oh, that was it. That was Dune 2. Yes. So Ludwig just freaking he's killing it these days, and he's gonna get it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Ludwig is my pick for outstanding score. I think again the dude is on a trajectory of not just scoring music but scoring emotion, scoring like just moving pieces that like just work so well in scenes, and I just think that he has such a way of writing his own story musically to the movie that he's working on, and I think this is one of the best examples of that. And I think that everyone else in this category, like again, Poor Things, Jerskin, I think he did a great job as well, much like Ludwig, where there's an incorporation of sound elements amidst the score that helps to drive mood and tension and emotion. So just a little more probably abstract and obtuse in comparison to something like Ludwig's that feels very cinematic in the experience as you listen to the music and you see the moments unfold. It's something of its.
I mean, both are incredible achievements, but which of the two are you going to like choose to listen to just on its own in the background, right? I don't.
Yeah,
think
Ludwig is
Poor
that's
Things is,
true.
like,
Yeah,
nice background music so much.
Laura
as it
Cartman's
is
I would
a
probably
quirky
choose
part
to.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sure. You could jam along and write your next best-selling novel to that. I'm going to be a total bum here and pull a bit of a Kevin here. I will say, as much as I love his work and he deserves to be celebrated as perhaps the greatest composer of all time,
Did not need to
John
be nominated
Williams,
for this.
the only time the score stands out is when he's playing songs from 40, 50 years ago in,
It's his
in
best
the original
his
movies.
best
Like,
hits. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
crazy. It's crazy. And I will say, of all Academy-nominated films, the worst, I'm talking Razzie level score, has to go to May December. I don't know if you guys have seen any memes or read anything. It's this repeating piano riff that they play at the most inopportune times, and it is just jarring. It ruined that movie for me. It is almost comical.
Wow.
And you're not supposed to be laughing during this movie. So I thought I'd point that out, because doing this watch fest, it was like, holy moly, that is the complete opposite of what we're celebrating here. That's for sure. But why don't we move on to our next nominee for Best Picture? From producers Dan Friedkin, Bradley Thomas, Martin Scorsese, and Daniel Lupi, Killers of the Flower Moon focuses on a series of murders in Osage members and relations in the Osage Nation after oil was discovered on tribal land.
Oh boy, this is a movie that I was not a fan of by any means. Not to do with necessarily its length. I really don't understand why so many people are praising this movie. Apart from it feeling overly insensitive to the story of the Osage people, it also feels like one of the most boring films that Martin Scorsese has ever done. And in all honesty, I felt the same about The Irishman, but the nostalgia of the Goodfellas crew getting back together kind of helped to move that movie along for me. But still, I don't know. Killers of the Flower Moon, like when I heard that he was doing this movie, I was nervous about it. Him taking it on, I was like, how is he going to depict this, given his, very pro-white mob-style films? I had a little bit of optimism. I was hoping that he might choose a different angle or try a different approach. I thought that's maybe why he was taking on this movie, but no, he definitely doubled down. Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro are seemingly the villains of this movie, and it is told from their perspective, but Chris Coates, who is a Osage language consultant, he said it best. Like, Scorsese did a great job of representing Osage people, but the history is being told almost from the perspective of Ernest Buckhart, who's Leonardo DiCaprio's character, and it seems to give him a consciousness. His motivation is driven by love, and that he's sort of someone that's being taken advantage of. So therefore, the audience has a little more empathy and concern. But no doubt, if you're somebody that conspires to murder an entire family, that's not love, man. But the other caveat to it is what we were sort of talking about with American fiction and other films is that, Devery Jacobs said this, but Indigenous people exist beyond grief, trauma, and atrocities. Pride of being Native, knowing your language, joy, and love are so much more interesting and humanizing than showing horrors that white men inflicted on us. So in my mind, the best way to articulate this movie, I wasn't a fan of it. I don't think it deserves Best Picture. I don't think he deserves Best Director. The only thing that this movie had going for it was Lily Gladstone. This is the strength of the movie. This is the heart of the movie. I wanted more of her. She is so stoic. She is so powerful. That performance is so captivating. I wanted more of it. And I was really hoping that this movie would have been from her angle. There's always this internal narrative that we hear from a character in Scorsese's films that kind of tells us the story. What if that was Lily Gladstone's character and it's from her perspective and from her story? But I digress. I think that, there's probably other merits to this movie. It wasn't for me. I watched the whole 3.5 hours and on top of it, like the fact that it was 3.5 hours, I don't understand why it was so long. But yeah, if anything to be celebrated from this movie, it's Lily.
Yeah, after seeing Devery's tweet and then kind of hearing from you, Justin, I didn't watch this movie. I didn't see it. I do really, however, want to watch a supercut somewhere, wherever it might be, of Lily's performance from the film. Because if that's the case, if you wanted more and clearly she's being celebrated, I think I really want to see that. But I think if anything, everything that's going on with her and the awards that she's won so far, I just want to see her again in another movie.
And the reason why this movie, the only thing that should be celebrated from this movie is her performance. You know what I mean? And like that's in my
and the cinematography.
Cinematography,
the use of landscape and everything it's a beautiful looking movie.
Sure, it looks great, but it's again like it's definitely a history story told from the perspective of Martin Scorsese, and it doesn't. I don't think it really works in my opinion. But I know that there's a lot of people that have like deemed this as like a masterpiece and such a thoughtful story. But I don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's become almost like the in thing to do to complain about movie runtimes, and I'm as guilty as anybody about it. But when the characters sit around a table and discuss their plans for like the third time, I'm like, I know what you're going to do. Just do it already. And I certainly think the back half of the movie carries a lot more weight and is a lot more interesting than the first hour and a half or so. I think, honestly, you could say it about so many movies, but trim an hour off of this sucker and you have a really tight 2.5 hour long potential masterpiece. And I just think there's too much showmanship from a director who's already got his accolades. We already love and respect you enough, Marty. This is just filleting yourself on screen for an hour too long, and it was too much for me. It was pretentious and just too much. I think my least favorite watches of the 10 Best Picture nominees, certainly. And that's not to say that there aren't some harrowing movies that we're going to discuss later that really rock you to your core, one in particular. But no, this was it just wasn't enjoyable at all. And I'm glad to be moving on from that, as we shall to our next two awards, which are my two favorite awards every year, and I certainly have a favorite nominee in each of the categories. Let's start with Best Original Screenplay. For Anatomy of a Fall, Justine Triet and Arthur Harari. For The Holdovers, David Hemmingson. For Maestro, Bradley Cooper and Josh Singer. For May December, Sammy Birch, story by Sammy Birch and Alex Mechanic. And for Past Lives, Celine Song. Seeing as I love these categories so much, I will start off here and say, if I could give this award to a movie simply for writing my kind of movie, I understand the idea of, art through cinema and whatnot, but in terms of just the most enjoyable experience I could possibly have watching any of these movies, The Holdovers was by far and away my favorite, and I was kind of torn over whether I should pick that one, especially because what we talked about earlier about how it feels like it's adapted from this classic novel. That's just such a testament to Hemmingson's writing. I loved it. But I think Anatomy of a Fall is going to take it for giving a very interesting and unique perspective to a courtroom drama.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there along with you, Kevin. I think The Holdovers was certainly, again, the way that it gives you those vibes and those feelings of like, wow, this must have been like an old book that was pulled out of a library from that school that they just turned into a movie. But or even Past Lives. I think there's so much, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about Past Lives a little later. But I think the momentum that Anatomy of a Fall has so far, as much as it wasn't necessarily my bag, I think it'll take Best Original Screenplay.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going out of left field then. I guess I'm going
Please.
with Past Lives. I'm
okay.
Yeah, I really
hope
enjoyed
so.
I would love it if
I mean,
Celine
just
won.
Yeah.
You're not crazy when you think it's the only other award outside of Best Picture that it got nominated for is for screenplay. Like, there has to be a reason it's in that big category.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same kind of weight as the others. So what got it there? It's probably the screenplay.
For sure. I think the same can be said about The Holdovers as well. I think that it's definitely, it deserves to be in this category, and you guys aren't wrong. Anatomy of the Fall is really the sort of pace, the structure of the story and how we kind of let it unfold. It's to be celebrated as having a very original take on a story. But yeah, like, did you guys see May December? Because like May December was weird. Like,
I did. Yeah. I did watch it. I thought it was such a unique way to tell a true story.
Yep.
And turning it into fiction. I think that movie deserves, if it was going to get nominated for anything, it's certainly here, because it wasn't going to be score, as I mentioned earlier, and it wasn't going to be acting. When your performers just both develop lisps halfway through a movie, it kind of throws me for a loop. But that was a choice that Natalie and Julianne made. No, but the story was very creative, and so
it
I
felt like
can
an
see
adaptation.
it getting recognized here.
Yeah, it felt more of an adaptation, which is why I was surprised that it was an original, because it's based on.
But it is original in this, But
exactly. I guess.
I mean, like, Sarah and I have been arguing for about 4 months now about what is an adapted and what is an original.
Sure.
Why is Barbie an adapted, but something
that
like
makes sense.
Maestro is an original, right? It's like when you think that's the real story, so it's got to be adapted from that story.
Well, I guess that
I
makes
don't
sense.
know the parameters of how they decide where these go sometimes.
Yeah, but I think, again, I think in terms of like the sort of personal and the personal approach that Past Lives takes, I think Celine deserves an award like this. I think she should be recognized for writing such a sort of a memorable film that really does, in my opinion, tells its story so concisely, and that does really come down to good writing in a lot of ways. So yeah, Past Lives for me.
Okay, interesting. So we finally got a little bit more dissension or differentiation between our choices. So that'll make the final results after Sunday quite interesting. But let's move into adapted screenplay. For American Fiction, Cord Jefferson. For Barbie, Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. For Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan. For Poor Things, Tony McNamara. And for The Zone of Interest, Jonathan Glazer.
I don't know. I can. It makes sense as to why Barbie would be in this category. It's an intellectual property that has its own existence, and it's being referenced and being telling a story through this film. So it makes sense that it should be an adapted. That said,
I agree 100%.
That said, I don't know if this is where this movie is going to be celebrated. It could, but I think my opinion would go to American Fiction. In all honesty, I think American Fiction.
Oh man, I would just that'll be my hurrah moment of the night if it happens.
I know Oppenheimer's in here, but again, I wonder if people are going to celebrate Oppenheimer for more of its technical achievements and some of its performative qualities over maybe the screenplay portion. But that said, I don't know. But I would love it if American Fiction won. Even though it might have worked to the movie's advantage, the fact that it was so like satirical and cynical, and as well as very sentimental, and it just had a mix of it. The writing for it and how it weaves its character, the character of Monk through, and the relationships that he has to tell specific points about the character, that to me is really crafty ways of adapting a book and maybe pointing out what is relevant, what helps to shape the story in this adaptation of film. So yeah, I'm gonna go with American Fiction.
Yeah, I wholeheartedy agree. I think this category might be the toughest to predict. I think the Oppenheimer train could steamroll right through here as well. But I would also love it to be Barbie. But I think with the amount of noms this movie has, to your point, Kevin, that you made earlier with the OG screenplay, like I think Justin with Past Lives, I think this is where American Fiction gets it. I think this is going to be the one, and I would love to see it sort of disrupt the Oppenheimer train. As it's rolling through.
I don't think it's going to disrupt it much, but again, an award that it doesn't necessarily need is Best Adapted Screenplay. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? I think, again, there's so many other things that help to make this film, Oppenheimer, a success outside of that. So there's, like you said, though, there's so many great films that are in this category. It's a hard one to pick.
But it's also so poetic because it's a movie about a writer winning for writing.
Sure.
would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, this is often where my favorite movie of the best pictures gets rewarded, is in this category. And so I could easily just pretend that I agreed and had written the same thing as you guys and gone, yeah, American Fiction. But I won't. I'll stick to my original choice of Oppenheimer. But no, when you look at past films like Inglourious Bastards and Midnight in Paris and Coda, this is where they sort of get their recognition. And so I will be so happy to be wrong about this one. I would love to see American Fiction take it, but I think what Nolan did and the story that could have been told, you know, you look at Spike Lee coming out and saying, well, I would have focused on the bomb itself and the destruction afterwards and stuff. And Nolan made it so much more personal to the character of Oppenheimer instead. And I think it was a very like only Nolan would have taken this story and told it the way he did. And so I think that's why they're recognizing the screenplay in this category, and I think that's what might give it the edge. But again, if this is where they award the lighter of the fair in the Best Picture categories, it would certainly be to go to American Fiction. And I would be absolutely thrilled. We will just have to wait and see. Why don't we move on to our next nominee for Best Picture? From producers Martin Scorsese, Bradley Cooper, Steven Spielberg, Fred Berner, Amy Durning, and Christy Mackescow Krieger, Maestro centers on the relationship between American composer Leonard Bernstein and his wife Felicia Montealegre. This one came out of the gates and instantly caught flack for the controversy around some prosthetics that Bradley Cooper chose to wear. And considering the family has come out and said they were absolutely okay with it and fine with it, the makeup in this movie is unbelievable. Bradley Cooper transforms in perhaps the most realistic prosthetic work I've ever seen in my life. Like, he looks like Leonard Bernstein at the end of that movie giving that interview on camera. It's unbelievable. And I think, as somebody who did perform in concert bands for throughout high school, maybe I can appreciate the work he did to learn how to compose music. I think 6 years is pretty crazy. It's a crazy amount of time to dedicate to a 6-minute scene, but he did it. Hats off to him. He transformed himself into this man. And while it wasn't one of my favorites of the nominees for Best Picture, I can certainly appreciate how this is sort of Bradley Cooper's passion project. And if he never makes another movie again, I think he should be more than proud to be defined as this is his life's work. But he's nowhere near done. He's got a ton more stories to tell, I'm sure. But while I didn't love the movie and I didn't necessarily gravitate towards it all that much, I can certainly appreciate all of the aspects that went into it.
Yeah, I agree. But it does feel very portraiture in its style and within a very specific time of his life as well, given, the focus on his wife and being diagnosed with cancer and the sort of topic of, life partner, if you will, given Leonard's extracurriculars and his other relationships that he had outside of the one with his wife and his family. But you're absolutely right. Like, I think the way Bradley Cooper transforms himself into this character with the use of the prosthetics to really become Leonard Bernstein, it's absolutely phenomenal. Carey Mulligan is fantastic as well. This is a movie that's elevated by its performances that were absolutely top notch, and there were some good qualities. And I think that Bradley will direct again. He does some good work. He obviously has a sense of understanding of the type of films that he wants to make.
I think I honestly just feel bad for B. Coop at this point. He's the new Leo. Like, when is he going to get his little gold statue? It's
what is it
more
gonna
of
be
an
for,
inevitability.
right?
I mean, but I think it's more of a when, not if.
Sure.
The guy has been, nominated basically every other year for the last decade, 12 years. He'll get there eventually, and I'll love to see it. But yeah, this one, I think it's got its praise. It got a bunch of noms, but I'm not sure how many, if any, it'll take home. So if we're all good, why don't we move on to our next category? This one is near and dear to the Geekcentric heart, but I also think this one is one of the harder categories to sort of decide. I'm going to be very interested to see what you guys go with. This is for Best Animated Feature Film: The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'm just going to start here by saying shame on these studios for not having these movies readily accessible. I don't pirate, and I was not able to find 2 of them to watch for this, and that really disappoints me greatly. I spent about $180 renting all of these movies so I could watch them. Would have been more than willing to do it, but I could not find The Boy and the Heron or Robot Dreams, and I think that's a real missed opportunity by those studios. Show off your work. Let me see it, because if you don't give me a choice, people are going to pirate it, and then nobody wins in that way. So just that's my little 2 cents on the category. But I know this one is near and dear, and you guys loved a lot of these, so I'm going to let you guys talk away.
Yeah, this category is stacked. It's stacked.
Stacked. There could have been more.
Yeah,
but it's pretty stacked with what options we have.
Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Should have been in there.
I'd love to see Nimona take it. Just being nominated, though, I think is a massive win for that movie and everyone who worked on it. I'm so proud of that movie and that team. I think The Boy and the Heron, coming from the legend himself, Hayao Miyazaki, has won pretty much everywhere, or mostly everywhere. But I think it's going to be Spider-Verse, and I think there's something to be said about the accessibility of that movie. Its popularity, obviously, I think could send it over the edge. That, and it's just a damn good movie in every conceivable way, but especially when it comes to animation, right? Like, I think doing things like that movie does stuff on screen that even after the first one, I had never seen before. And I know it took a billion million painstaking hours for this team to make this movie flow as effortlessly as it does from each frame to another. But when every single frame is incredible, it's just so impressive, and I can't say enough. And I wish it was up for Best Picture, but whatever. I'm voting it for animated for sure.
Yeah, I think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is the one that you would pick as a massive achievement for animation, and just the audience attention to it, the people that it brought out to really see this movie beyond just it being an animated movie, but being for its story.
Everyone watched this movie. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's something to be celebrated in the power of using the medium to elevate its storytelling. And yeah, I think it will definitely be the one that is going to be the winner of Best Animated Feature. I do think a close second is The Boy and the Heron. I think I haven't seen that movie, but obviously I listened to the review and I've heard sentiments about it. And I think the sort of autobiographical approach to telling a very sincere story about life and death is something that I think, again, is a great example of the marriage between animation and storytelling. And it's the style of how these stories are told. It's that marriage of the medium to help elevate the narrative. And hey, an upset would be great if Nimona won, because man, that movie went through trials and tribulations to get made. So the fact that it saw the light of day, I was just thrilled when I saw its name on the nomination list. And I'm sure the directors and everyone are super, and the entire team are celebrated and excited to be a part of it, to even, hear about ND and the strength of the story and moving forward. It's it deserves to be on this list. So I'm so happy that it is. But I think it's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you guys talked so much about Nimona and how much you loved it, and then the interviews that you did were so great, and I've been meaning to get to it, and so I actually stayed up till 4:30 last night just so I could watch it before we sat down tonight, and it was worth it. It was awesome. I love that movie. I can't wait till my daughter's a little older to watch that movie again. I think it's so much fun. It's beautiful to look at. I did not get a chance to watch The Boy and the Heron, but Nate, your review with Darcy, I loved it, and I've wanted to watch it since you guys talked about it, so I will eventually get around to it. Elemental is your here you go, Pixar, you made a movie, so you get a nomination. It was better than I expected, but I'm not sure if it's a best anything
Can I just
nominee.
Let me just
Robot?
jump in really
Yep.
quick. Sorry, just shout out to Peter Son and his team, though, because I do think that, well, you're right, Kevin, like Pixar, it's almost so impressive that it's like normal. Like they're always there.
I think maybe I am being unfair.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's not one of the top 10 out of the so many amazing movies.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's not an incredible achievement. And the interviews that you guys were able to do for that one were also fantastic. And so, yeah, you know what? Everyone who gets nominated deserves it. So I shouldn't make it sound like they don't.
But I just
apologize.
meant like even more so what they managed to do with the elements with fire and water in that movie.
Yes,
technically,
absolutely, yeah.
that's why they're there. Honestly, I think more than anything.
Yeah, I'm going with Spider-Man. I honestly thought, here's one where I'm going to be a little different. These guys are definitely picking, they're your more traditional choice with Boy and the Heron. But no, I think Spider-Man, it'll be amazing because a sequel winning an award like this will be really kind of crazy. You don't see that very often. The Academy doesn't often, outside of Godfather 2, give much love to sequels.
Well, and next year
that movie's
with Dune, I'm sure. But go ahead.
Well, we'll see. We'll see about that. No. I'm sure it'll get 1 or 2 nominations. But yeah, I think across the board, we're going across the Spider-Verse. Why don't we move to our next Best Picture nominee? From producers Emma Thomas, Charles Roven, and Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer chronicles the life of American theoretical physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, who is credited with being the father of the atomic bomb for his role in the Manhattan Project, the World War II undertaking that developed the first nuclear weapons. We made it. We made it to the 13 nominee movie. No matter how many of those it takes, just to be nominated 13 times tells you what kind of movie we're talking about here. This was, when you can get $1 billion worth of views out of a movie, a 3-hour-long courtroom movie about science. Attaching the name Christopher Nolan doesn't hurt, but obviously something magical happened with this movie, and it was a one-of-a-kind theatrical experience. I just wish I got to see it in 70 millimeters, but, that's just me.
It is the best movie of the year, and it is total Oscar bait at the same time, right? It's a biopic film telling the story about America's past and sort of shedding light on sort of the questionable decisions that were made through the character of Robert Oppenheimer. Beyond the fact of how much money it made, it's also just one of the best movies because of the fact that it celebrates the power of filmmaking. There's great writing in this film. There's fantastic editing, as we were discussing before, with the pacing of a 3-hour movie, stunning cinematography, some pretty incredible visual effects, even though it wasn't nominated, and an emotive score from Ludwig, an ensemble cast that is absolutely outstanding. And this is all led with Christopher Nolan at the helm as the director, who has asserted himself as an auteur of cinema, and is looking to win Best Director. So this movie in itself encapsulates everything that is so important about why these awards happen. It's going to win its technical achievements. It's also going to win the performative. There's a reason why this is nominated for as many awards as it is. So,
yeah, I think it's impossible to find a kind word that hasn't already been said about this movie at this point. I think I've seen the movie multiple times now. I enjoyed it more each time that I watched it, and it's cinema at its most spectacular, and it's just so incredibly captivating, and it's a phenomenal look at humanity's greatest. One of humanity's greatest tragedies, and I think it definitely deserves to get everything it gets this year.
And I think one of the more remarkable things about this, which is why I picked it in the screenplay, is because of how Nolan chose to tell this story, as a necessary evil. It's not like they tell the story and Oppenheimer's excited to make the bomb and then it goes off and he goes, oh no, what have I done? He knows what he's doing this whole time and knows he has to. And that's the terrible burden that he's facing and that he will forever be remembered as. I don't think anybody would want to be known as the father of the atomic bomb, knowing what that means. And so I think to examine the character in that way is really one of the best choices that Nolan could have made and makes for such an incredible movie. It was in my opinion, it's the best movie of the year. Whether it wins that award or not, it's the best overall from all aspects: acting, technical, behind the camera, in front of the camera, everything. It's the best movie of the year, and It's a stunning achievement. Just retire now, Chris. You'll never top. You might make more enjoyable movies like you have in the past. Whatever. You'll never make a better movie because few people ever will or have made a movie quite this unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, I think now thinking about the aspect of the writing, it's really interesting to focus the way that he told the story about, Oppenheimer playing a part but not considering the variable of people, right? Like, that was the variable that haunted him the most outside of the science that he knew about building this bomb. He knew that to a T, but it was the outside variables of what happens after its use and what it's contributed in now being one of the most egregious acts of war. It's building and using an atomic weapon on another civilization, right? So it's become this stature of power, and it's interesting how that sort of feeds into the end, and we realize that that is the world that we live in, and it really does put you in that place. So yeah, I could see how adapted would probably win adapted.
Can't change it now. Sorry, bud. No,
He locked in. He locked it in.
Yeah, I locked it in. It's fine. It's fine.
But as you said, Nate, I think on this podcast alone, we've got well over an hour, 2-3 hours,
Probably as long as the movie itself,
talking about this movie over the course of the last 8 months or so, for good reason. But yeah, I think we've said all that can be said. Which is probably true of at least one nominee in this next category, but we're going to do it anyways. This is for Best Director. The nominees are for Anatomy of a Fall, Justine Triet; for Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese; for Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan; for Poor Things, Yorgos Lanthimos; and for The Zone of Interest, Jonathan Glazer. We know where Justin stands because he said it in the last
Nolan.
I think we all.
It's gonna be
I think
Nolan,
we all
yeah.
kind of did. Is there any? I think it's Oppenheimer across the board. Is there any of the other nominees that you would love to shout out though for something special, Nate?
I think there is a lot to celebrate regarding Jonathan Glazer's approach to what he did with The Zone of Interest. I think that movie is, you mentioned that we were going to talk about some harrowing movies, so I'll save the majority of what I want to say till we actually get to that movie. But I also think Yorgos Lanthimos's decisions with Poor Things, as much as that movie didn't fully work for me, I can't deny how much I appreciate the direction of that film, and I think Yorgos did a really good job. Deserves to be there.
Yeah, he 100% deserves to be there. I think that's like sort of visionary directing, like otherworldly. It's just everything is so intentional to the story that he's telling, and you just see it in everything he's doing, and it's pretty incredible to see how much he was able to achieve and how bold he was able to go outside of gratuitous sex scenes with the story that he was telling.
Yeah, but the meticulous attention to detail to create the movie that Christopher Nolan wanted to create, and the fact that, like, from everything I've seen in interviews with him, he got to make it.
I think so, and as many film lovers our age and around this, have been Nolan fans for the better part of a decade and a half, almost 2 decades. It's going to be pretty awesome to see him absolutely get the award that he deserves for a tremendous career and an amazing movie.
I hope he loses composure when he wins. I hope he no,
man, that guy's never lost his composure in his life.
Because he can control time, Kevin. That's why. He probably has, but he's rewound time.
There we go.
He knows.
Tenet is a based
autobiographical
on a true story.
Story. Yeah.
Listen. If that guy could deal with Christian Bale for a decade, he can handle anything.
There we go.
Let's move on to our next nominee for Best Picture. From producers David Hinojosa, Christine Vahon, and Pamela Coffer, Past Lives follows 2 childhood friends over the course of 24 years while they contemplate the nature of their relationship as they grow apart, living different lives. It was fine. It was really nice. But Best Picture, this, in my opinion, I just don't understand its inclusion there. I think it's its simplicity is what makes it work, but for me it's almost just too simplistic. I didn't feel any different after watching it as I did during or before watching it. I don't know. It's like 4 days spread over 24 years in these two people's lives, and then they just go their separate ways, and I'm just not sure what I was supposed to get out of it. I will say that the performance from from Teo Yo, like this, his performance is stunning, and he's so sweet, and he plays nervous and awkward and shy so well. The way he's waiting for her in the park and just tapping his legs. Oh my God, it was such a beautiful performance. I fell in love with his character throughout the movie, but that's all that I got out of it personally. And I know so many people would just hit me over the head right now for even suggesting such a thing.
No, I think again, this is a story. This is an immigrant story in its simplistic form, right? I think Past Lives is a fantastic way of understanding the sort of what connectivity looks like, and it does it in a very personal and intimate way with a gentle kindness. I think the reference of Inyun, the Korean word for referring to relationships driven by destiny. And it's a part of all relationships, really. I think that's on full display here, and we see that through Nora with her past, with Haesung, and her present with Arthur in New York, and just the choices that she's made along the way to get to the decision of leaving her past, and recognizing that. I think similarly to how she is stuck between like two cultures. I think she's stuck between two sides of her life, and it's her past and her present. She chooses her present in the end. And, that choice of acceptance and closure and understanding how the choices you've made in your life have led you to a point. This is a very personal story. I think it's slightly autobiographical from writer-director Selena Song. And I think she directs a hell of a story here that feels tangible and maybe not always relatable to audiences. I think it is relatable in the sense of being able to just let go and negotiating your past and present, especially given the perspective, as I mentioned off the top here, just it being sort of an immigrant story and the cultural identity of who you are intertwined with who you've become and how that influences you. So I think there was a lot to say in this movie that, which is why it's being celebrated in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think this movie is so lovely and so sad all at the same time. I think it's such an excellent and realistic look at love and lost relationships, and it brought me back to some of the feelings that I had with the earlier seasons of Master of None, which is I know that's more of a comedy drama, but I remember watching that show and sort of feeling like
Season 2, 100%,
was the most
man.
realistic
Definitely see that
feeling of like, and even going from season 1 to season 2, where I fell in love with those characters' relationships, to see them grow apart. And so with this movie, there were so many moments where I was just like, I was just like yelling at my screen, like yelling at them, and I still felt so powerless, and that I couldn't change the outcome, and that they just had to live these separate lives, and they go their own way, and then I don't know, I really enjoyed the movie, and I didn't feel happy after watching it, but I definitely enjoyed it, and it gave me a lot to think about. Maybe I don't like to watch movies about love that don't end in love. I don't know. Or it's at least a different interpretation of it. But we will move on to our three final award categories. We'll start with nominee for Best Actress in a Leading Role. Annette Bening for Naiad, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone for Poor Things.
Well, I already said Lily Gladstone. I think she deserves it. She's the best part of that movie, which is why she deserves to win it. And again, her performance, every time she was on screen, you just wanted more of her, and it was everlasting. It was present. It was powerful. It was stoic. There was all these all these different buzzwords of how she commanded the scene, and sometimes she wasn't even saying much. It was just the way she was reacting and whatnot. So yeah, I do think that Lily Gladstone, but there are some heavy hitters here, like Emma Stone, Poor Things, transformative. That was a transformative performance. She really becomes someone else, especially given the sort of evolution of her character. You really do feel it from start to finish. Where she started and where she ends are two different people, and you know, she owned that. And then, as we mentioned, like Sandra Huller in Anatomy of the Fall, like she's also in a Zone of Interest, but I'm happy she's being nominated for this because her performance drives that movie. It is the driving force of it. So yeah, those are my honorable mentions, but I do think Lily Gladstone is pinned to win this one.
Yeah, I think Sandra Hüller is she's kind of it's of the two movies that I've seen her in. It seems like she's there to give career defining performances, and I think she's killing it. I do think her work in Anatomy of a Fall was unbelievable. And then yeah, Emma Stone is awesome. She was just awesome in that movie. But yeah, Lily Gladstone is going to get it. I think, you know, she's the first, Kevin, you mentioned she's the first actor to win, first Indigenous actor to win a SAG award in the Best Actress category. And I do think she's going to bring home that first for the category at the Oscars as well.
I mean, I just worry that is that a driving force behind the win, or is it simply a really wonderful attribute of her winning the award is that she becomes that, or is she going to win it simply because she is, I'm like, I hate to say it, but it's been played before. It does get played in these shows sometimes, and honestly, I think Emma Stone had the far better performance here. I think she has so much more to do. I think the evolution of the character that she portrays. She plays like 5 different characters in one movie, and I think that can get off the rails a little. You think of like James McAvoy just chewing scenery in a movie like Split, where it's like, oh, I get to do 8 different accents. How fun. But here I think there's just so much intent behind each of the stages of her character's growth. And I just think I think Lily's just too one note for me to have really appreciated the performance the way so many people do. Maybe it's because I wasn't invested in the movie that I couldn't invest myself enough in the performance, and maybe I missed out on really appreciating something amazing, but I just wasn't as blown away after watching that as I was after finishing Poor Things and just going, wow, what Emma Stone did there was incredible. So I am picking Emma. I think Lily's kind of got the upper hand now. I think Emma might be a close second. I think the biggest upset could come in this category in a different way, though. I think voters might split themselves between Lily and Emma, and Sandra Hüller might sweep in. The Academy grew with international numbers tremendously this year, and I think her performance is getting praise and lots of love overseas. And I think if we're going to get one massive, unbelievable surprise, I won't call it an upset, but a surprise, I could see that happening, but I don't think it's actually that realistic. I'm going to go with Emma Stone in Poor Things, though, and switch things up from you guys a little. I'm probably wrong. That might just be a personal choice. I appreciated her performance so much more, not to take anything away from Lily. I do want to quickly shout out both Annette Bening and Jodie Foster. I decided I was going to just binge movies like crazy over the last 3 days, and I made sure to watch Nyad because if you get 2 acting nominations from the same movie, there's got to be something going on there. And I think what is kind of like your stereotypical underdog story that, is very much made for general audiences, I do think people would, like, just general moviegoers will really appreciate the story and the way it's told in Nyad. I think the performances from Annette Bening and Jodie Foster are absolutely phenomenal and worth checking out if you get some time. So I did want to just give a quick shout out there. Carey Mulligan in Maestro, you called her out, and she's also phenomenal. I think all 5 nominees, as is the case in most, are tremendous. Yeah, they're tremendous, and Yeah, I think Lily takes it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Emma takes it. So I'm going to go with her for the upset. Let's move to our second last nominee for Best Picture from producers Ed Guinea, Andrew Lowe, Yorgos Lanthimos, and Emma Stone. Poor Things follows Bella Baxter, a young woman in Victorian London who comes to life through a brain transplant and embarks on an odyssey of self-discovery. This is the most Terry Gilliam movie not directed by the late, great Terry Gilliam that I've ever seen. It is so weird. It is so wholly unique. And it was way more perverted than I ever expected this movie to be. Like, Nate, how were you uncomfortable watching this movie?
I didn't. There's so much that I appreciate about this movie. I think, as we've already talked about the performances, we were just talking about Emma Stone. I think the art direction, the production design, the Willy Wonka, kind of esque, like the Burton-esque kind of production design is so appreciated. And the wild, absurd cinematography was fantastic. And I also think the message that this movie is giving as well is excellent. I didn't connect with it as much, and I think it was a bit of those elements that of the perverseness, as you put it, that just sort of held me back. I think it could have been cut down a little bit. I think it could have still had the same impact, but they could have, from an editing standpoint, I think they could have held back a little bit.
And
I
don't know.
It was excessive. I don't think you're wrong. It was excessive, in
Yeah,
my opinion, a little bit.
Yeah, the movie is incredibly weird and very surreal, and it has its own vibe. I love the call out of like the Tim Burton-esque style production design, because it's whimsical, but it's also bizarro,
and creepy
at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's extremely creepy. Very like, there was times where it felt very Nightmare Before Christmas. And just the twisted, weird concept around Bella Baxter is intriguing. This is a coming of age story in a lot of ways, and you said it was self-discovery, as you described in it, and self-discovery is definitely utilized through sex in this movie, and the exploration of one's relationships and understanding of the body it's put on full display, and it almost seems like it's very much overused in a very dark comedic side, but there's also a primitive side to it that feels very intentional in a way for Bella to understand existence, and her own existence, I guess, in a lot of ways. It was very, very overused at times, but I'm interested because I feel like there's so many messages to take away from this movie. Nate, what was the message that stood out to you from this movie?
I mean, I think the concept of owning one's own self, right? Owning one's own body. There's a lot of elements there as well, and I think those are kind of the moments that stuck out to me, and I think that they could have achieved at least those messages with a little bit more editing. Again, I think there was some excessiveness that I get it. It's there to either add maybe a comedic element, or it's there to add just kind of, again, to sort of emphasize those aspects. But I don't know. I think it'll work for some people.
Brain, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to stay out of spoilers as much as I can. I don't know if we are going full spoil. I guess we've already spoiled some other movies, but yes, there's a very specific aspect about Bella's character when she's growing up that I just didn't appreciate that they explored, and it just kind of, I don't know. I just couldn't. I couldn't do it.
I mean, and even self-discovery is one thing, but to have a character fall in love with the mind of a child and the body of an adult is kind of just, and we'll just, hopefully that's not too spoiler,
but
it's,
falling in love
is
one
weird to watch.
Yeah, falling in love is one thing. The aspect of the sexual acts is just kind of couldn't get my brain around it.
Yeah, for sure. It's also how much information do the people know that are interacting with her in that way, know about her certain case. The only person that knew about it was the assistant, which, again, as Kevin pointed out, it's a bit odd because he knew, but he fell in love, but he cared for her. He wanted to he wanted to protect her. Granted, marriage and what comes along with that is not necessarily that sense of protection. If I thought there was going to be a brotherly
I don't think he had the same
approach.
intentions through that as Ruffalo did. Though,
No, but again, Ruffalo's
like,
character
Ruffalo's
doesn't
fully
know.
investing in that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, but
But-
Ruffalo
but I
doesn't
mean-
know, and the other thing too, I think that at least what happens here is that it starts with her discovering herself before she goes on the notion of the sexual journey that would then ensue.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's celebrated for performances and its world building, and that's where it really should shine as being one of the like standouts as to why it's best picture material.
That I agree with. Certain elements are just so phenomenal and so unique, and so original that
Yeah.
recognition is definitely deserved.
Because,
it's
just-
just whether I was uncomfortable watching it or not is another.
Right, and beyond the gratuitous sex scenes that are featured throughout the movie, the moments that stand out to me about Emma are outside of all of that, right? Because there's a lot of people that say like, "Oh, of course she's going to get nominated. Look how many sex scenes she did in that movie," and that's just so degrading
Yikes.
to the
It's
performance
not
that she
why.
did, and
Yeah.
Brutal.
that's so like
It's gross.
like you hear people that say that, and it's like the moments that she was not in those acts.
Yeah.
Of doing those deeds, it was there that she stood and shined, where she was transformative. Again, we've used that word a couple times today, but this
Jeez, who said that? Seth MacFarlane?
I think there was a influencer who made mention to it as to because she did win an award. I believe Emma Stone has won a couple awards against Lily Gladstone for Best Actress, and commenting on well, look, watch the movie and see what she does, and there's a reason why, right?
No,
It's
the strength of that character comes when she stands up for herself outside
Absolutely.
of those situations,
Exactly.
100%.
especially to Ruffalo. Like, it's amazing when she's reading the books and like there's some great moments there.
yeah.
And it's odd that they were able to find so much humor in such a weird and challenging at times movie. So yeah, I think we can all agree that it was certainly a unique film-going experience. Why don't we move into our second last award here? This is for Best Actor in a Leading Role. Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction.
Well, I'm going with Cillian Murphy. I think again he's cleaned up all the awards. Makes the most logical sense to pick him. But that said, the only other person that I would like to see this award go to is Paul Giamatti. Again, just how much his character grows and the way you see it in his performance, and yeah, it was a performance that stuck with me for sure. Out of these, I haven't seen Rustin, but I know Coleman Domingo is absolutely fantastic and just kills.
That was my least favorite of the nominees.
Okay.
It felt a bit theatrical. Maybe a little bit hammy over the top. I meant to go watch some footage of the man that he's portraying to see how accurate it was, and I just didn't have time. But watching it, it felt a little over the top, whereas these other performances seem just more realistic and grounded, I guess. So that's all I would say about Coleman's performance. Not that it wasn't good; it just wasn't my cup of tea.
I'd love to see Paul Giamatti get it. I would also love to see Jeffrey Wright take this home as well. I think that would be such a cool moment.
Not his time
but
he'll get it.
That was good.
but it's gonna go to Cillian Murphy. There's just too much pointing in his favor, and I think he deserves it. Absolutely, he embodied Oppenheimer so well, and it was awesome to finally get him to see him as a leading character. There's so many movies where he's not, and he just deserves that so much because he's so excellent. I want to call back to our review. I mentioned I think my favorite thing about what he did in that role is the voice that he developed for Oppie, or that he adapted, and it is so seamlessly delivered. You talk about a transformative role, and he did it. Sure. Right. So
Yeah.
he's gonna get this one.
I have to say as well too, just on the opposite end of how he becomes the character, it's the moments when he's not talking that are just so incredibly enveloping. Like you just get so immersed in his emotion, what his eyes are saying, how he's contemplative. Like it's those moments that stand out as being like some of the best acting in this movie, just in the sense of how he processes and how he becomes this character, right? So yeah, Killian all the way, man.
Yeah, you guys said it. Paul Giamatti's so incredible. It's that you like him, you like him and you like watching him even at the beginning. When if you knew this guy in real life, you'd be like, screw that guy. But he's so fun to watch even then. But by the end, you're like, oh my goodness, I would just hug this man right now for what he's done and who he's become. It's beautiful. I've liked Paul Giamatti ever since I saw him in Planet of the Apes. I can't. Wow. I mean, this isn't his first nom, right? Sideways. He's almost 20 years old now, and he's amazing in that. But he's really become this respected go-to guy for roles like this. And if he doesn't get it here, I hope to see him win an award for what he can do on the screen at some point. But no, I think when you're in like 90% of a 3-hour plus movie and basically carry that movie on your shoulders and are able to stand out when there's like 20 other incredible performances, including an Oscar-winning one around you, like something has to be said about that. I think what Killian did and what Nolan trusted him to do, I'm not sure many people could have pulled that off. I know my dad's a big Peaky Blinders fan. He's just like, man, how good is Killian in that? Oh my God, he's so good. I'm so happy to see him do so well. So I think this one's a no-brainer. I think he takes it easily. But like, shout out to everybody. And one more mention to what Bradley Cooper did and committed to that role for Maestro. But yeah, Killian all the way. Let's move to our final nominee for Best Picture, and I do these in alphabetical order just so I'm not showing any preference, but if you were to stack these movies on a list alphabetically, Zone of Interest would be at the bottom simply because of how heavy it is. Like, it would sink to the bottom naturally because holy moly. And why don't I talk a little bit about it and then we can discuss. Our final nominee for Best Picture from producers James Wilson and oh boy, I can't even pronounce it and I won't even try. The Zone of Interest examines German Nazi commandant Rudolf Höss and his wife Hedwig and focuses on the pair as they strive to build a dream life for their family in a home next to the Auschwitz concentration camp.
This is, you said heavy. I think it's an incredibly difficult movie to watch. I think it's also an incredibly important film. I think it I won't be the first to say that it elevates the way that these stories should be told. And I think there's so many harsh and horrible moments in it, but they're hidden by this mundane life of a German soldier and his family. And that just adds to that contrast of that sort of just building and building and building throughout the film. I don't think I'll ever watch it again, but I think it'll for sure be. I think everyone should watch it, and I think it'll be studied by students of film for decades to come.
Yeah, how mundane the lives of these Nazis living amidst next to an Auschwitz camp, where there's just this sense of complacency and this sense of disillusion and the procedural implications that come with murdering millions. That's what's so uneasy. It's not what you're seeing. It's what you're hearing. It's knowing who these characters are that is so horrifying. It's horror on a whole other level. You see children, you see how they're interacting. And
it looks like if you were to mute it and not look at the background, it looks like The Sound of Music. At times,
for sure,
I mean?
and
it's
and
kind
again,
of that story, right? Like, let's go for a picnic while the Nazis kill everyone around
exactly. us. And this sort of, again, it's just it highlights the disillusion, and really, it was very impactful at the end, and how it sort of reveals itself as being a what is the legacy of all of this, right? We watch it, we know what the legacy is, and situating it in a sort of what Auschwitz is now, what it's remembered as. I liked that. I thought that was very poignant in a way of bringing in that sense of reality into this movie that was out to set a precedence of making you feel uncomfortable, knowing based on the circumstances of what's happening, what's going on. It's deserves to be in this category of Best Picture just for how uneasy it makes the viewing experience.
Yeah, like while I wouldn't compare the films, much like I talked about how Nolan made choices to tell his story from a certain perspective and from a certain way, that's done here as well, in the sense that, like, you could have shown these as horrible people because that's the only possible way anybody could commit these atrocities, was to be horrible. And I think what makes them horrible isn't that they're sitting around scheming about these things so much as that they're able to just go home and eat dinner as a normal family while this is going on. And I think the way they decided to show the first half of the movie, and they're having a pool party picnic in the backyard, and there's dozens of people playing and laughing and singing, and just over their fence are the smoke towers billowing out essentially the bodies of these people. And I love the choice that when their own lives sort of take a turn and things aren't as idyllic for them, then all of a sudden you can hear what they've just been blocking out. It's been there. Those sounds, those screams, the gunshots, they've been there, but they just blocked it out. But once their lives aren't so perfect anymore, that is just a constant sound. Like the kid playing in his bedroom by the window, and you hear all those things. It's just, that is maybe the most upsetting scene in the movie for me, because I don't feel bad for the adults who decided to be complacent in this. It's the kids who, like, what is their lives for the rest of their lives, knowing what their families did and were responsible for. And just one more shot in the movie towards the end there, where Haas is leaving the empty building, and he stops, and it's almost like he turns and looks at the camera, and he's like, "Oh, you've been watching me this whole time." And he almost reflects then on what he's doing and what that legacy is going to be, just like you said. And and it's like, wow, like it's so powerful. Again, Nate, that is a one and done. Never want to have to experience that again. But taking the time to understand that sort of thing is so important. It is important for people to you can never forget these things happened and what it all means beyond just the deaths. It's everything that goes into it. It's a really powerful film.
It's a way of telling the stories and showing the atrocities outside of everything else, right? It's a different angle. Here, it's definitely leveraged that you show the sense of disillusion through the means of just living a picturesque dream of being a family and having your, the position that you have to make the money that you make and have the future, and all this just so outside of everything else that's happening. It was a unique approach to really make you feel something that I don't think I've ever felt from watching a period piece about World War II. Everything has always been very the atrocities, that effect. The lack thereof of the visual and the more auditory elements that felt so uneasy.
Yeah, it's like I mentioned earlier with Spike Lee. Like, I would have shown the bomb and the devastation. No, Nolan didn't. You don't need to see it to understand it, and that's very much what's done in this
film. It's
the
repercussions.
You don't need to. You don't need to see it happening. You know what's happening beyond that fence without even hearing it. You know, and that's what makes it so unsettling and so disturbing. And it was a really unique way of telling that story. Man, that was the heaviest by far of all the nominees. Now, speaking of, why don't we recap the Best Pictures one more time, even though I'm pretty sure we all know what we're going to pick for Best Picture. The nominees are American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest.
Yeah, I mean, Barbie, right? I
could be the upset.
I wish.
It could definitely be the upset.
I think that would be amazing. I honestly think, I think a lot of these movies are so deserved. They all deserve to be in the Best Picture category. But this is going to be an exciting moment for Nolan and company. Well, at the same time, it's going to be like, yeah, okay, yeah. It's gonna. I think as an audience, it's just kind of like, yeah, obviously, yeah, okay. It's the most locked in. But I think. I don't think any of the Best Pictures have been able to, at least so far, touch the behemoth that is Oppenheimer. So Oppenheimer is going to win Best Picture for sure.
Yeah, I again, it's Oppenheimer. I think every movie that we've talked about here, there's a reason why it's here. Again, I've ran on a tangent there about Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't believe it should be here for Best Picture. I think it's just because it's a Scorsese film and so on and so forth. There's all this prerequisite of it being here, but for every other movie outside of that, they deserve to be here. They did something different with their storytelling. They made you care. They made you love and appreciate characters. They made you hate characters. They did so much. And Oppenheimer, I feel, is the single best example of a best picture, as I was mentioning, because of its celebration of the power of filmmaking and the stories that it can tell, and also just focusing in on that idea of being responsible for actions that are, egregious at this point, and understanding the weight of that and that personal dilemma that comes with it. You've said twice now, Kevin, you could show the bomb or you could show what happens after, and that was far more interesting and far more intriguing in that understanding of how you negotiate of being someone who's introduced probably the single worst weapon into the world, and that is a stature of power across the world of dominance, what you have. So that's all thanks to Oppenheimer. So that's something that he had to wear. So an interesting angle to play on that story of American history. So yeah, Oppenheimer for sure.
Yeah, I think we might have a new all-time Oscar-winning film so far. Return of the King and Titanic lead that category with 11 wins each. Oppenheimer's nominated for 13, and I have a hard time finding too many that it won't rightfully take away. It's going to be very interesting to see on Sunday. We'll see what kind of surprises are in store, or if this is one of the more predictable, not in a bad way, Oscar shows. But I think it's time we wrap this up. It's time we go and celebrate some after parties, or more realistically, go to bed because I have an early morning. But that is another Academy Awards prediction show in the bag. Thank you so much for tuning in wherever you listen to podcasts. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and leave us an award-winning review. We'd love to have to don tuxes and accept an award for our hard work one day. As always, reach out, say hey, and let us know who you'll be rooting for and who you think is going to win at this year's Academy Awards. You can do so at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com, or if that feels too much like Margot getting snubbed for Best Actress, hit us up on the socials. Justin, where can they do that?
Well, they can reach us on the app formerly known as Twitter, X, at GeekcentricYT, or on Instagram at We Are.
Nice. Be sure to tune in next week where we will reveal who won our annual competition. And I guess who won the actual important things at the 96th Annual Academy Awards. We can't wait to discuss our favorite winners, our biggest disappointments, and the inevitable surprise or two of the night. Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies, TV shows, and games, including our ongoing watch club for the third and final season of The Bad Batch. We also keep the amazing interviews coming. Check out our conversation with Michelle Ang, or Ange. Ang, thank you. Check out our conversation with Michelle Ang, Jennifer Corbett, and Brad Rao of the aforementioned Bad Batch, as well as our interviews with Thirst Traps, Paul Sun-hyun Lee, and Daniel Day Kim of Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is awesome. Please, we just have so many fantastic interviews with the cast and crews of some of our favorite productions of the last year and a bit. So be sure to check those out wherever you listen to podcasts, or come watch them on YouTube and see the Thirst Traps, Justin, Nate, and myself, for yourself. That way you can see if we're 7s, 8s, 10s, or even better. 2024 is rolling along, and it's only getting busier as we march forward. So stay tuned and keep joining us. But until next time, Justin, Nate, thanks for joining me. And as we say...
And the Oscar goes to... Love ya.
Get home safe, guys.
Peace.